The next element here in investing in hemp, we're welcoming our Chief Executive, VicLink, Kiwinet and Barnett. Now, prior to becoming CEO and spent 4 years growing and developing the IP and commercialisation team within VicLink as General Manager Commercialisation, taking it from a team of one to a team of many, driving process and significant increase in the number of disclosures. A physical scientist by training and is passionate about bringing science, technology and society together. It sounds like a fantastic mix for us here today. Ladies and gents, round of applause. And Barnett.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the very kind introduction and the invitation to speak. Whilst I have been introduced under my day job, which is CEO of VicLink, which is the Commercialisation Office and Technology Transfer Function at Victoria University here in Wellington, I'm actually here today to represent Kiwinet, one of the sponsors for the program. Kiwinet had their awards night in Auckland last night, and their team worked very, very hard delivering that and cleaning up, and since I wasn't there and I'm in Wellington, they asked if I would be happy enough to speak on their behalf. So Kiwinet is an organisation that VicLink is a member of. They represent over 75% of the commercialisation effort within the research, publicly funded research institutes in New Zealand, so they're a fantastic umbrella organisation. Their role is to support the organisations such as VicLink with funding, networks and programs in order to help us to translate the research from within our institutes out into the private sector. Excellent. So Kiwinet has a nice video that they have asked me to play for you. It gives you a bit of a flavour of what the organisation is about.
We are leading the world in creating new ideas and innovative solutions, transforming scientific discoveries into new business like we've never seen before, building commercial aspiration and entrepreneurship into the DNA of our scientists, strengthening commercialisation activity in our research organisations, harnessing collective wisdom across our national network to make the impossible possible, joining forces with industry to develop collaborative solutions and partnering science with the right investment at the right time, building the best teams around technologies to power up success, driving prosperity from what we know, not just from what we grow, channeling it all to create a better tomorrow for New Zealand. Who are we? We are Kiwinet.
I'm actually very fortunate to be speaking after the fantastic examples that you've just seen from Steve and Miriana. The depth of engagement that both of those presentations demonstrated with the Science and Technology Innovation Network within New Zealand was fantastic, and I think the example that Steve provided of the level of engagement across the end-to-end leverage model, that's almost the ideal approach to use with the research institutes. So what I'm going to present to you today, or can you flick on? Yep, fantastic, is more focused about what actually happens within the research institutes and the journey that these very incipient and early stage technologies have to go through. So they start off in an area, it's a little bit cliche to talk about the valley of death, but it certainly exists within the system. They start on the far side where you have a reasonably good amount of depth research funding available to the scientists, and then as the research gets more and more applied, they get to a point where it's sort of developed, but it's not really ready to be taken up by industry. And this is the part that Kiwinet and some of the funding from, especially around NBIE, is incredibly critical to us in order to help us to translate the R&D into propositions that industry can pick up. So Kiwinet provides us with the pre-seed accelerator funding opportunity, which comes through NBIE, and that helps us to get across that valley. There are other initiatives, such as those run by Callaghan Innovation, and those are things such as the Technology Incubator Network, and that's particularly applicable when you're trying to take new technologies into the startup space. We look to do exit technologies out via licensing partnership and startups, typically. So one point point of contention, I guess, is what is the role of a technology transfer organisation or commercialisation office within a university or a research institute, and how do you engage? That's a really important question. Perhaps in the past, tech transfer officers have behaved or have been perceived to behave as an organisation that flips the technology over the fence and expects to get some money back from it. But all of the commercialisation officers, at least within Kiwinet, operate with a much broader mandate and idea in mind. One of the things that Mariana mentioned actually was around that educational lift and shift, and that culture change, that getting the scientists within the institute to be demand-driven and market-led, to be able to explain their science and their research and their value to industry is incredibly important, and this is part of the role that the tech transfer officers play. It's that translation between the science and the industry. We work really hard with the research officers within our organisations, which help to get the funding in to underpin the research and help to make sure that what the research that's actually been done is really industry driven, where we can help and make sure that some of those understandings of the value chain and the value propositions are in the back of the minds of the scientists while they are doing their research. And we also work closely with our student communities to drive entrepreneurship and to drive the culture change within the institute so that they're really relevant. Kiwinet provides support to us across the journey from a research idea at one end of the spectrum right through to the actual commercial outcome. They are an advocate for us with our researchers, our research organisations, the other partners within the commercialisation partner network. So, for example, Return on Science at Auckland University, the government, Callaghan Innovation, and then, of course, the investment and business community. There are a number of bottlenecks in the system that they help us to address, in particular at the early stages where we're talking about entrepreneurship and commercial capacity within the research teams, and then right through to the end where we're talking about the investor and private sector engagement and helping with the private sector so that they can understand and interpret what's coming out of the research groups. The engine room of Kiwinet is their investment committee. So I've mentioned funding earlier. There's around about $10 million, just over a $10 million fund in the Pre-Seed Accelerator Fund that's been provided to Kiwinet. And this money is granted out to the institutes through their investment committee. One of the things that was mentioned by an earlier speaker, which is incredibly important, is about utilising the capacity within our research community really, really effectively. We are a small country, we have limited resources. So this investment committee not only doles out funding, but also ensures that all of the 75%, about 17 institutes within Kiwinet, have high visibility of what's going on in other institutes. That means we're able to be very collaborative, we're able to ensure we're not duplicating effort, we're able to make bigger projects and bring parts of the system together that may otherwise not have been seen. So that's an incredibly critical function within this investment committee. And you can see the range of organisations represented, and you will have heard from many of them during this conference. So if you're interested in engaging, and I get to this a little bit later, but if you want to start to engage with the research community in New Zealand and you haven't done it before, Kiwinet is a fantastic overarching organisation that you can go to, and they can help to point you in the right direction because there's an awful lot going on and a lot of it's not known. So if you think about Victoria University, for example, you may not think of us as a university that necessarily does a lot in the medical space, and yet we won a gold award at the Wellington Gold Awards last night for Mundocine, which is New Zealand's second only drug that's ever made it into market. So we have, we actually do a lot of pharmaceutical research, but it's not necessarily that widely known. So if you go to Kiwinet, you're going to get a really good flavour of where all the best R&D is at a vast majority of our research institutes. So Kiwinet's goal over the next 5 years is to quadruple the quality and the value of the high-impact licence deals and the startups that are coming out of their pipeline of projects that they help us to manage. The driver is all about that new economy, all about getting high-value economy, high-value returns for New Zealand from science. And they've actually done a really, really good job of it. This is just, I'm going to make sure I keep my presentation short for you. This is a set of examples of startup companies. It ranges from animal health to material science, nanotechnology, pharmaceuticals, medical diagnostics, software engineering. It's a really vast, wide-ranging set of outcomes that they've helped us achieve. And one of the really neat statistics is that since their inception in 2011, they've actually managed to achieve a 6 times return on investment for New Zealand from the funding that's gone in through the Pre-Seed Accelerator funding. And if you think about the types of technology and the stage of technology that's being invested in with this fund, that's actually a fantastic outcome. So we're really looking to grow on that success over the past 7 years and try and accelerate that up and have as much impact in New Zealand as we possibly can. It certainly drives me to get out of bed in the morning, that's for sure. So why would you want to partner with a university or a Crown Research Institute? It says licence here, but actually I think one of the really important things here, and it was that was demonstrated by the previous speakers, is that it's not a flip it over the fence model. So there might be a piece of technology that's really useful and important in what you want to do with your development, but actually what you can do is come back into the research institute and partner and get access to some really great R&D capability, and that's your grunt, that's your machine that can drive the value, push you up the value chain and get you some really neat outcomes for your business, and I think that's a lot of the value for the engagement. We work, all the tech transfer officers work really closely with business. We're used to doing very early partnering. We understand that what we're providing is to some extent de-risked but not fully de-risked, so we're pretty realistic about that partnering, and we really want to make it collaborative, so that's a really big driver. So if you're interested, I'd strongly recommend that you contact either the commercialisation office at a particular institute, if you can identify a research team you want to work with, or if you're not sure about it, go and have a chat to Kiwinet and they'll be able to point you in the right direction for where you want to go. Excellent. I'll let you get on with things. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Don't run away. Anne, come back. Anne, please, don't run away. Just like to say thank you very much indeed for your time, and what Richard is passing to now is a token of our appreciation for your information that you've passed to us here at our conference. So can I get another round of applause, ladies and gents? Anne Barnett.